do make a lot of stumbles tonight, it's because my brain is fried.
Yeah.
So the things we're going to move right along.
Let's
to
do
the round,
that.
Right to the round table for this evening. First things first. Let's introduce Dave Taylor. Dave, tell us a bit about yourself and your history in the miniature world.
Okay. Basically, I've been playing miniature war games for, what is it now, 26 years, I think, and working in the toy soldier business for 23. Started out working for Games Workshop in my hometown of Newcastle, Australia. Moved to Sydney, opened up a few stores around Australia for Games Workshop, and then started working in the sort of promotions department, and did all sorts of cool things there. Worked on White Dwarf magazine, ran the Australian Games Days, grand tournaments, all that sort of stuff. Had a great team of people working with me, and basically I was offered a job in the US to work for a Games Workshop over here, working in the promotions team. And I thought, that sounds pretty cool. I'll go and do that for a few years. That was 15 years ago. I sort of got stuck in Baltimore, but I really enjoyed here. When I left Games Workshop in 2008, I worked for Battlefront Miniatures, who make Flames of War. I worked for them on the War Games Illustrated magazine, which is cool tabletop wargaming magazine, primarily focused on historical wargaming. So I was doing layout, editing, writing, photography, show coverage, all sorts of stuff for War Games Illustrated as the US editor. And then 3.5 years ago, I left there to open my own business, Dave Taylor Miniatures, which is essentially a consulting business, sort of at its core. Over the years, I've built up a pretty broad skill set. There's a lot of things I can do, and I'm all about helping small companies bring new product to market. Essentially, that's my primary focus, or help larger companies sort of sell more of their existing product.
So you guys are going to be able to have like a little powwow after this. You'll be like, yes, we both work in the games industry, and it'll be lovely. Yeah. He talks with a British accent when he has questions. Okay, so we'll talk a lot more about Dave Taylor Miniatures when we get down the path and we get more into the miniature side of stuff. But let's focus to start on the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. How did that get its start? And tell us a bit about the foundation and what it does.
Okay, sure thing. Basically, I'm going to take it back just a little bit further than that. 2010, there were a couple of guys in California who had a blog, and they wanted to do something cool charity-wise. So they got together with a whole bunch of other bloggers that they liked, and put together a project called the Storm Wardens Project, which was building up a Space Marine army for 40K that we then went and raffled off. Raised $16,000 for Doctors Without Borders. 2011, we decided to do a much larger project. There were a lot of other bloggers came on board, and we did 4 armies for 40K, all based around the Armageddon sort of campaign. So there were Orcs, Speed Freak Orcs, Space Marines, and Imperial Guard. And I think from that we raised about $33,000 for charity. Following year, 2012, we took a break, and a couple of vloggers in Europe actually took up the charge there and did some cool charity work. And then in 2013, Nova Open, a couple of the people who were involved in running the Nova Open convention in Northern Virginia here thought, okay, well, this is something that's very cool. We'd like to be involved in this sort of charity activities. So they actually put together everything that was needed to create a non-profit organization, which is the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. So from 2013 through to this year, we've been doing an increasing amount of sort of armies, wargaming armies that we've raffled off for various causes. And yeah, things have just been sort of growing from strength to strength.
So tell me a bit about where you've talked a bit about doing it for Doctors Without Borders. You've got a few different auctions coming up this year. Maybe why don't you run through what the auctions are that are coming up on the block and where the money's going to?
Sure thing. I'm just going to pull up the site here so that I can make sure I get everything right. So yeah, we're doing what we have. The different ways that we raise money are we have the raffles that we do online. We have silent auctions at the Nova Open event at the beginning of September, and also at the Nova Open event we have the Nova Open Charitable Foundation Lounge, which is a sort of lovely set of hotel rooms that we set up a bar in and sell booze to excited gamers, which is pretty cool.
That sounds like a fantastic business idea. We should do that.
It is spectacular.
Yeah.
Definitely very cool. But so this year, raffle-wise, we've got the sort of the largest number of armies that we've raffled off. We have a 40k Necron army, which is about 4,000 points, so it's pretty huge, or at least it's 4,000 points in the old money. Not sure what it is in 8th edition. But that one goes to benefit Doctors Without Borders. We have 2 30k armies being done, so this is the first time we've done done complete 30k armies. We have Sons of Horus and Mechanicum, a Mechanicum force as well. Both of those go to benefit the International Rescue Committee. We have Blood Bowl. So Wes Cogdall is the guy who runs a painting studio called Stiffneck Studios. He's also in the U.S. Army. He has been involved with us for a long time now, and this year he's painted up or he and his team have painted up basically a complete Blood Bowl set and created a custom pitch for that. That is going to benefit the Fisher House Foundation, which is an organization here in the U.S. Which ensures that families of veterans who are sort of being cared for in the Veterans Affairs hospitals across the country have a place to stay while their loved ones are going through surgery or rehabilitation or whatever it might happen to be. So yeah, we've been supporting them for the last 4 or 5 years. We also have for Fantasy Flight Games X-Wing. We have Madeline Cockrell is painting up a rebel force, Organa's Angels. I'm just going to check who that's going to benefit, and while that's coming up, here we go. That is going to the Fisher House Foundation as well. We have 2 Flames of War armies, Monty's Desert Rats and Rommel's Africa Corps. So 2 Flames of War mid-war armies, lots of tanks there. I think both of those go to benefit Doctors Without Borders. The folks at Steamforged Games are providing a basically a Guild Ball team. So it's the Farmers Guild studio. Cool. Sort of paint job. The one that I think it's I think they're debuting at Gen Con.
Oh, so it's even like a like you could sort of get it fully painted early type of deal.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome.
I think they've shown some of it off on Beasts of War and probably a couple of other places, but yeah, we're pretty excited about that. That's going to be the studio team, beautiful paint job. Let me check who that's going to. That benefits Doctors Without Borders, And then our final army is the War Machine Army, the Signar Army Strikers and Regulars that you worked on, Will.
Yep. Woo! Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry, there were two. There's like 10 really good miniatures and two okay ones. I'm just kidding.
That's terrible. They're all fantastic. I think the army came out brilliantly. It's after working on this sort of thing for 7 years or so, and knowing that. So when you send out models to 5, 6, 7, 8 different people who are all going to paint things that come back to a single army, giving them all recipes and color recipes and saying this color and that color use this way, we never ever get everything coming back looking exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a different take. Everybody has a different approach to their painting, and for me, that's the part of the exciting part about it. It's an army that everybody's worked on it to bring it together, but they haven't left their individual styles behind.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's always really cool to see everything appear. I'm lucky because I get to photograph everything for the website, and as everything starts arriving, I can sort of open the boxes, unwrap them, and start lining them up on my dining room table. My wife hates it, but it's very cool to see it appear.
If you want to see what that army looks like, so some of the people that worked on that, it was Yom Le Machines. Yom is a Canadian painter. He and I go to a lot of painting competitions together, and he always it just takes that bar and pushes it up a notch. I love his work, and I love looking at his work, because not only is he a beautiful painter, but the reason why they call him the Machine, from what I understand, is because he's also ridiculously fast.
Is he?
Yeah, he's amazingly good, but also can paint amazingly good at a pace that most people can't keep up with. James Craig, who's a regular on the show, he's got a couple pieces in there. Ben, who from the Kingston, from Primal Poodle Miniatures, he has a couple pieces in there. The list itself was designed by another one of our regulars,
World Team Championship member
Marc-Andre LeBlanc. Yeah. And Mark has said that when whoever wins this, if you want advice on how to run that army, he is quite happy to sort of explain how it ticks over. He was kind of put with one hand tied behind his back with that, because the only stipulation was he had to put the Black 13th in.
Right.
That was for Yom.
Because Yom had designed, we designed the whole color scheme around the Black 13th. But Mark seems to think that he's figured out a way to make that whole thing tick. So
awesome.
We'll make sure that
I'm sure he has. I mean,
whoever wins that, if you're listening to the podcast, we'll make sure that if you have questions, we can get them to Mark and make sure that he can sort of explain how to work that whole thing. I think it has a lot to do with Striker 2. I think is really the trick to making it work is ignore the rest of the army and run Striker 2 in.
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool, and of course the one of the signature pieces that came out of that was done by former Privateer Press painter Matt DiPetrio, who has been working in a style that's not new. It's a style that he's adapted from other great painters, but he's really embraced this style of painting. Hopefully, we can get Matt on the show in a month or two, and we'll have him describe the contrast miniatures style, which is a pretty cool way of doing it. Both Jason and I have read his blog posts and have tried that style, and it's a really fantastic way to learn how to get proper shading and detail.
It is, yeah. It's a great learning method.
Okay,
it definitely helps you push that contrast for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hence, contrast miniatures. There's 5 other names in there that off the top of my head I can't remember right now, but these are all really great painters, and I mean for me it was super exciting just to be part of that group and to be able to. We had a private Facebook group that we could post and ask questions and go back and forth and see the progress on everybody's stuff, and both James and I just had an absolute blast being part of that whole thing and going back and forth and seeing what people did, and it's pretty amazing because the bases. Bases really unify an army, but the bases and colors of the armor really unified that army in the end, and it looks
it looks amazing.
Looks like it all goes together.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fantastic.
All right, so the next question is, how do you choose the charities? So you've got, there's basically 3 charities that you've mentioned working with directly.
Yep.
Where does that come from? Where does the how do you go about coming up with that being the right one to work with?
Right. Well, the sort of back in the day, going back to 2010, there was a bit of discussion sort of going on amongst the bloggers as to who we should be supporting. We wanted to make sure we had as broad an appeal as possible, so we sort of said, okay, we'll avoid things like the local animal shelter or something that's sort of state specific or whatever, and went for that's when we went for Doctors Without Borders. So that's a group that does a lot of good all around the world, and almost everybody's heard of them. So that continued through into the primary armies when we started up the Nova Open Charitable Foundation, and as well our president the president of the Nova Open Charitable Foundation, Laurie Brandt. She's I think I'm going to say 2-time survivor of breast cancer. So Laurie also put up the Breast Cancer Research Foundation as a benefit, sort of somebody or a charity that would benefit from our efforts. So that's actually who the Strikers or Regulars are going to benefit. So that will go. The money from that will go to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation.
Oh, sweet.
From there, we had some things in when we started working with Wes Cogdell in Stiffneck Studios. His sort of only stipulation was that the things that he created would go to benefit the Fisher House Foundation. So for a few years, we had sort of an international relief kind of beneficiary. We had a cancer research beneficiary, and we had something that would benefit veterans. So we tried to look at larger sort of groupings or genres, I guess, of charitable organizations, and we've also spent a lot of time. We look at the things like Charity Navigator, which lets you know how much money or sort of what percentage of money is going through to their actual programs. All of those 3 that I've mentioned, all of their percentages are very high. I think the lowest might be sort of 82, 85%. But generally, I think Doctors Without Borders is around 90, 92% of the funds that they receive go through to the programs that they're sort of enacting. The other 8%, of course, is administrative costs.
Right. Well, I mean, and every foundation has to do some of that, but some are worse than others. And
yeah. So we're focused on the ones that are sending a lot of money through to their causes, to the mission. This year, we added the International Rescue Committee, who do a lot of work with refugees around the world. The International Rescue Committee was brought to us by Mark Rayleigh, who helped coordinate the 2 30K armies. Mark and a bunch of his friends, they're actually friends of mine as well, do a lot of the 30K sort of events, run a lot of 30K events at Nova Open and at Adepticon. So this year, a lot of their efforts have been focused around helping the International Rescue Committee. So that's kind of how we choose them. We wanted to look at sort of something with a fairly broad focus that had good ratings on Charity Navigator, or the Charity Navigator website, and sent a lot of their money through to the mission, whatever their mission happened to be.
So I guess the next inevitable question is, tell our viewers how to win. How do I get my hands on some of that sweet loot? Or if I want to put it in a more PC way, how do I help? How do I, in the arms of the angels?
How do you can help?
Yeah.
you can help by basically going to the novaopenfoundation.org is the website. So, yeah, I'll say that again, novaopenfoundation.org. And there you'll see a drop-down menu for our current raffles. You can go to any of those, take a look at what is on offer, and buy raffle tickets. I think for most of those armies, we're looking at $2 a raffle ticket. And I think for most of those, they're also unlimited tickets. So you can, of course, buy as many as you like. To sort of reduce the amount of PayPal fees that we pay, we do have a minimum of $10 being purchased. This is all in US dollars. So that's the sort of the easy way. You go there, you purchase your tickets, and you're in with a chance. You can do that from obviously anywhere in the world that has Wi-Fi. If you can get online, you can buy tickets. And one of the things that I always try to emphasize is you don't have to have ever been to the Nova Open event. You don't have to go to the Nova Open event. That's where we draw we draw the prizes there. We draw the raffle there. And we announce the winners there, but we will ship to anywhere in the world that has a valid mailing address.
So to get this right, everybody, you could have a fully painted list of Signar for the low cost of $10. This is your chance. Yep. And to be honest, I mean, I find the miniature community is one of the better communities for getting involved with charities. And I mean, it's pretty amazing how. I mean, you don't hear about Dungeons and Dragons players getting together for. I'm just sorry, D&D guys. I'm glad I love you too. I am one of you. But the cool thing
not
is
anymore. You're not.
I'm out. Damn it. Rodiger the Thief will no longer reign supreme. Anyway,
I'll tell you, next year we're going to include something that is D&D related, so we can bring the D&D community.
Excellent. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the guys who are part of the War Machine community here, as proud Mies, make sure that you go to the website, put your $10 in.
Yep.
For better or for worse, you could be the winner of an army that's infinitely of more value.
Your friends will curse at you for.
Yeah, exactly, and you'll look beautiful on the table.
Yeah,
and it'll be Striker, and Striker 2 will win, so it'll be really awesome. So I get let's move right along. Are there other ways I can get involved other than just buying tickets? If I wanted to either be part of one of these painted armies, to donate something, is there other ways to get involved with the foundation?
Yep, there certainly are. At the moment, the biggest way immediately, so there's buy tickets, there's spread the news, make sure that everybody that War Games or is thinking about wargaming knows that these things are available, and that they can go and buy tickets to support some great charities. From there, I mentioned we have the silent auction at the show. So if you have a piece, or if you have a unit of miniatures or an army that you're not using anymore that you would like to donate, you can certainly do that. And we can put that into the silent auction, which will be done at the show. Beyond that, it would be sort of getting ready to sort of prepare for next year as well. And as far as the War Machine community goes, I think I haven't spoken with James yet, but I think James would probably be the person that would be looking to coordinate the War Machine army for next year as well. So I think we'll work out some way of contacting, whether it's contacting me and I pass it on to James, or contacting Moose Machine and.
Oh, we'll figure out a way to we'll make sure that it really between James and I and you, I'm sure we can figure out something. So if you're a painter and you want to paint something, just get in touch with us. We'll plunk your name into James's memory bank, and when time comes when we get the call next year.
Yeah.
Very definitely.
When the glowing light from above hits us.
We started out with, I mentioned back in 2010, I think we had about 7 or 8 people were involved. This year we have close to 50 people who have contributed to the various armies that are sort of being raffled. So definitely super cool. Oh, sorry, I just remembered as well. One thing that we've done the last couple of years, and we've really expanded it this year, is not just armies, but we have individual miniatures that have been donated by various folks.
There's a Nemo that got donated this year.
Is.
It's friggin' gorgeous.
One of the busts.
No, like
like actual Nemo.
So you put your $10 in for the Striker army, and then you put your $10 in for the Nemo, and then I mean you're pretty much ready to Nemo. I think it's Nemo 2.
Yeah, it's that Nemo is painted by Angel Heraldez.
He's okay. I've heard it.
Wow.
Yeah, he's not too bad.
Yeah, he's all right, I guess.
Yeah.
If only we could all paint like him.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely spectacular. He does wonderful work.
So anyway, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap up our talk on the Nova Open Foundation. Everybody, again, with all of our hearts, please. This is probably one of the best things that the miniature community does, and this is one of the first times in a long time that War Machine has been involved. Let's, as the War Machine community, show up everybody else and bid on that army. Let's show them what we're made of, because
that's right.
This, as I said, we'll be there next year, I'm sure, but it's kind of a point of pride that we let's get our cash in there, let's put our money where our mouths is, and let's do some good.
Yeah.
I know the War Machine community is great. They support a lot of fantastic local charity efforts. So yeah, coming together and supporting this would be fantastic. We're really looking forward to seeing what the War Machine community can do.
All right, and I want to thank everybody for hanging out that was our public service cast. We haven't done one in a while. It's a bit different, I know, and I'm sure some people will be like,
we've kept our viewership.
What's going on, man? When are you gonna tell me how to win with Ghost Fleet, Jason?
You just put them on the table and you win. Jesus Christ.
Duh. So the next topic is, because we have Dave on the cast, I think it's time to talk us a little hobby. And you and I would rather, let's talk about that. Let's
talk about hobby.
I like that idea. It sounds like your phone is ringing.
That's not mine.
Oh, somebody's phone is ringing. That's weird. It's creeping me out.
I thought maybe it was like...
It's creeping me out. It is mine.
Yeah.
I wonder who's calling me at this hour.
I don't have that silly little chime sound.
Sorry about that, everybody. It
was kind of like a harp, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to Dave now about, miniatures. We're going to talk about gaming. We're going to talk about painting. We're going to talk about the hobby side.
Yeah, which is an important part of the game.
So I guess where we want to start is, you already told us how you got into with the Games Workshop guys, traveled the world, helping them open up stores. What is it that you love about miniatures and miniature gaming, and what keeps you playing?
I think the main thing I love is talking about toy soldiers. Really, is the friends that I've made, the people that I know, just the community that comes around, that is involved in wargaming and painting miniatures. It's a fairly it's a very niche kind of thing to do. It's an odd thing in the broader sort of regards of the community of society, but it's a very cool way. There's lots of fantastic people that I've met over the years. So that's the main thing that I love about it. But I also really enjoy just sitting down in my basement dungeon here and putting paintbrush to miniature.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a bit about some of the work that you're doing currently. Since you started your own company, what are some of the projects that you've been involved in the last few years? And so that people kind of have a perspective of where you come from and who you are.
Sure. So I mentioned sort of very briefly that I started my own business, sort of consulting business, using being able to offer up the different skill sets that I've developed over the years. So I've been able to do work for a whole bunch of different companies, including most recently I've done quite a bit of work for Cool Mini or Not, working on their miniature games, Dark Age and Wrath of Kings.
Nice.
I've done so that's a fairly it's a largish company, all the way through to working with Joey Maguire from World's End Publishing on This Is Not a Test, sort of the very essence of a sort of one-man show. So just working with a whole sort of variety of people. Ninja Division, I've done some work with them on creating hobby content.
Cool.
Which is a lot of fun to work on, painting articles, terrain articles, that sort of thing.
Jason works for Ninja Division as well. So
all right, cool.
Yeah.
So you guys have things in common now.
Cool, Dave.
Besties.
We should talk more about that.
We should.
Excellent. Lots of things like that. Done some work with Warlord Games on creating some painting guides for Bolt Action. Hopefully, I'll be doing some more work with them later this year. Building one of the things we mentioned, I think, at some point was the diorama that I did for Games and Gears for their card game Dark Deeds. So there's that sort of thing. I built a couple of other tables. I built a table for Ninja Division. I built a table, sort of demo display table for Infamy Miniatures, James Griffiths over in the UK. Just a whole sort of range of stuff.
Do we have any audience questions? I know that a couple came up. So why don't you hit the audience questions?
Okay, so Brian Crimson actually had 2 questions. His first question was, what is your opinion, Dave, on 2D versus 3D terrain?
I'm a big fan of things that help me sort of become immersed in the world that I'm playing in. So 3D terrain is sort of very much that. 3-dimensional terrain helps me feel like I'm moving my little toy soldiers through harsh environments or across a battlefield. So 2D terrain doesn't help me sort of immerse myself. I think there are a lot of game systems that work incredibly well with 2D terrain. So an area of terrain has a particular set of rules. Really, it can work just perfectly fine as a 2D terrain sort of setup. I think there are some companies doing some really cool looking 2D terrain. And I know that if I was to sort of put together a 2D table for myself, that I'd be looking to those companies to sort of get rolling. I think it really depends on what people want out of their games. For me, it's immersion in the world. For other people, it's a tactical challenge. And two things don't always have to be the same.
True. That was a very diplomatic answer.
It was.
It's one of the most diplomatic answers we've had yet on that.
Have you thought about going into politics?
Not at all.
I hear the U.S. is looking for some good politicians right about now.
Any politician.
Any.
Right now.
Jason, no politics, religion, or sports
right.
on this cast. Mainly because we just don't know anything about them. But.
Second question. Do you do, so when you're photographing miniatures, Dave, do you do a lot of post-process work on the actual photos themselves, or is it more the lighting and you just kind of, whatever the camera captures is what's there?
I do some processing and sort of run it through Photoshop. Typically, it's sort of very, very simple stuff. It's balancing the levels and checking the brightness and contrast. Really, the two main things I do. I very rarely mess with the color balances and that sort of thing. So a lot of that's. I just make sure I have my set of studio lights and make sure I got to have a tripod to ensure sort of can remain stable through any sort of lengthy sort of shutter openings. I'm forgetting the word for it now, but anyway. So I try to do as little as possible afterwards, but sometimes it just helps for a little bump a little brightness and contrast in there.
Cool.
So let's talk a bit about, I know that there'll be some of the advanced painters that are listening to the cast that will be interested in how to make that transition to doing commission work, or to make money basically doing what they love. What,
Right.
do you have any advice for the guys that want to do stuff that you do? Some of the layout work, some of the photography work, some of the painting work, some of the terrain work. How is there a path to that, or is it just sweat and tears?
I think it's a healthy mix of two. It's definitely sweat and tears, but no, I think there's a lot of people who, well, I think when we paint, we all paint for different reasons. We all enjoy different aspects of painting, or don't enjoy aspects of painting, that sort of thing. I think one of the most important parts is people talk about motivation. How do you keep your motivation?
Mm-hmm.
What inspires you to keep painting sort of day in, day out, all that sort of stuff. And I would suggest that you don't think about motivation, or you don't think about inspiration too much. Make it a habit. Make painting a habit. I probably spend on my own miniatures, my own sort of hobby time, anywhere from like 10 to 15 hours a week. Is outside of work time, painting my own toy soldiers. So it's a habit. Sitting down at my desk here is something that is incredibly comfortable for me. And if I don't do that for like a couple of days, I get a little bit twitchy. I need to be painting something. Sometimes it doesn't really matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good to be painting. So if you want to become a commission painter and you want to be painting 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, depending on what the rest of your sort of life schedule is like, maybe 12 hours a day, you have to really be comfortable with sitting down and painting, regardless of sort of what the miniatures are, or what color you're using, and what techniques you're using, that sort of thing. I know that there are a lot of commission painters who really enjoy experimenting on each of the commissions that they get, and it's very cool that they're able to do that. My painting is I would call my painting sort of high-end tabletop. So for me, painting the miniature and getting it done is fairly key. I don't spend a lot of time experimenting on my commission painting pieces. People know what they're going to get from me, and that's why they've come to me. So develop a style, enjoy painting, paint lots, make it a habit.
Are awards important? Is that part of that scope too? Is it important to go out and win those crystal brushes and all that kind of stuff?
Getting a name, if you want a name, get a name for yourself. There are lots of different ways to go about it. Awards are one part of that, and sort of getting recognition is important. But you don't have to win the sort of the $10,000 check at the Crystal Brush to build a name. Attending the events is sort of probably quite important, because that's where you get to meet other painters, talk with them, and make sure that people know who you are. So yeah, I think pardon me, if you're talking about name recognition, awards are helpful, but they're not essential.
So let's backtrack and wheel it back to when you first started, when there was only what, like 2 painters in the world at that point, I think. And
I think there might have been 3.
Okay, there was 3 painters in the world at that point.
Yep.
I'm totally kidding. That was just mean, Will.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Wow.
So old.
Jesus. You ageist bastard.
I am. So
you need to speed this up. It's past my bedtime.
I finished my milky toast, and it's time for me to go. So give us some advice for beginners, for the guys that are just starting, that want to, everybody can learn the sort of the wash dry brush method fairly early on. But what do you think, other than, time and seat, which, we talk about the 1,000-hour theory, the 1,000,000-hour theory to get good. But do you have any sort of great advice for beginners, stuff that you tell somebody when they come up to you and say, hey, I want to paint like you someday? What is it that you tell them?
I tell them that they need to paint for 1,000 hours. No, there's no silver bullet for it. I think that I think the advice that I give everybody would be is just make it a habit, make painting a habit. Sit down and find out if you really enjoy painting, and if you do really enjoy painting miniatures, then sitting down and doing it 10, 15 hours a week isn't going to be too much of a stretch. It's just practice. It's ask questions when you see things that look cool or different or interesting or something you might want to try out. Ask questions. I think the painting community is great, particularly now. You've got this. With the internet, there's so much access to painters and to ideas and to methods. So yeah, I definitely recommend just ask questions.
Yeah, I don't know a single higher end painter that doesn't love talking about their work. So I always find it funny when people are like embarrassed to have to ask questions. It's like, no, really, that's mostly what those guys would love to have you come over and be like, how did you do this part over here?
It's all about like, if there are more painters that paint better than I do, then it's easier for me to ask questions and for me to improve. Mm-hmm. It's the big thing. I remember when I first started painting, when I first started gaming in the local gaming club. Essentially, the first time I took in some painted miniatures, I was the best painter in the club, sort of straight off. Mm-hmm. Mainly. I'm not trying to sound like I'm bragging there at all, but just everybody else in the club wasn't into painting at all. So 2 or 3 colors slapped on the model was just fine for them. So it wasn't until sort of 3 years later, when a Games Workshop store opened up in my hometown, that I saw some miniatures in the window. I said, "Oh, they're fantastic. Who painted those?" And the manager said, "I did." And he said, "Oh, how long did it take you to paint them?" He goes, "Well, I painted them last night." And I said, "Oh, okay, you painted that guy last night. What about the other 3?" And he goes, "No, I painted all 4 of them last night." And I was like, mind blown. What's going on here? Please tell me how you did that. So he sat me down and ran me through some of the basics, and that was when I got to start sort of progressing in my painting. Looking at lots of different things.
Well, and I think that brings up an important point too, and we harp on this all the time. Ask questions, but take courses or sit down with painters that are better than you and learn. Learning, you can learn. You obviously need to have practice. It's like learning to play the banjo or something. You can't just you can learn a lot from the internet. You can learn even more sitting there and practicing yourself. But there is something very, very important about mentorship that can accelerate you very, very quickly through some of the skills that you never would have picked up any other way.
Yeah.
Do we have any other audience questions?
Yes, we have a couple, actually.
Give it.
So, just one second, I'll bring it up here. Painting question. When your paint starts getting thick and goopy, how do you rethin it to usable, and when do you just throw it in the garbage and get a new paint, new pot?
I will freely admit that I have a fairly limited palette. I probably use about 35, 40 different colors, but I use them very regularly. I paint a lot of miniatures, so I almost never get to a point where my paints get sort of thick and goopy. But you can get flow aid. There's a company called Liquitex that has a flow aid or a flow improver product. So I would, if you're having that sort of issue, grab some of that flow improver, follow the directions on there.
Cool.
And I would throw out the paint sort of the second time it got.
Special note for the flow improver, by the way. If you're a brush licker like me, don't.
Just don't.
I lost my sense of taste for like 3 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really bad. Don't do it. Just don't.
Are you a brush licker, Dave?
I'm a brush licker, for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say, or just like roll with it.
Yeah, just go with it. Get better hot sauce.
I don't need taste buds.
This eye twitch is normal, man.
What a wimp shit.
Hi, honey. How was your day?
You've been brush licking again, haven't you?
So let's talk a bit about inspiration. What's some of your favorite games and minis to paint, Dave?
Recently, I've really been enjoying a game called Dark Age from Cool Mini or Not. It was one of those games where I'd seen it at shows where Cool Mini or Not had their big booth, but I never really paid attention to it. But since I've been playing it the last 18 months, it has sort of really grabbed my attention. I'm really enjoying working on those miniatures. They're all super characterful. They've got a big range. Range has been around for a while. They've got 7 different factions, lots of very characterful sculpts in each faction. So yeah, I've really been enjoying those. A lot of the other painting that I've been doing has been sort of commission stuff. So I have a client that I'm doing a lot of. I'm just going to reach over here. Doing a lot of Inquisitor miniatures for the old GW 54mm game. So I'm enjoying painting those, messing around with a different scale. Helps to sort of, I think it helps me to refine some of my highlighting and shading that I'm working on.
Working on all those smaller things all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that I've been messing around with. A couple of years ago, actually, I'm starting to get the itch to come back to it. I did a lot of work on messing around with some Hot Wheels cars and converting them into the cars from Mad Max Fury Road. So I still have a sort of huge batch of cars that I got a couple of years ago that I'm starting to think I need to go back and paint some more cool rusted out sort of craziness cars. So I've got those. I don't know.
So I mean, it sounds like you don't even. It doesn't have to be a game half the time. It can just be just a cool, interesting project to go at.
Pretty much. It's a weird thing that I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a gamer as such. I'm not very good with sort of game rules. There's always somebody who's going to know. Sort of at any table that I walk up to, somebody's going to know a lot more about it than I am.
It's okay. That's true of podcasters too. So
yeah. I constantly feel that way.
But the gaming is it's another sort of aspect of that friendship, that interaction. So even though I don't necessarily play a lot of games, most of my projects are based around something for a game. Even if I never end up playing that game, that's sort of fine with me. So, but it's nice to go, okay, well, I'm painting this for this purpose.
Yeah, that there's a reason.
There's a deadline that I have that we might play Blood Bowl on next Wednesday, so I've got to finish these guys. Whether we play Blood Bowl or not, it doesn't really matter, but it's nice to have that sort of project.
It's fun.
Deadline. So
we may have been playing a little Blood Bowl lately. Yep. I don't know what you're talking about. We might be slow travel to the dark side.
Yep.
Now you're going to play 40K. You just went straight from Blood Bowl to 40K. You just got dragged in.
I want to try it.
You just want to touch it. It's going to take a hit, man. I'm not going to inhale.
Yep. It is a gateway drug, I've heard. We have some more audience questions, Dave.
Sure.
Legionnaires would like to know, for 3D terrain, what is your opinion on laser printed 3D terrain, like MDF terrain?
Oh, MDF, laser cut terrain.
Laser cut.
Yeah, definitely all for it. There's loads of great stuff out there. There's a lot of companies do some stuff that's fairly boxy.
Yeah.
And it's generally people who are sort of starting off, or are starting to sort of really learning the parameters of what their equipment can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got friends at like Alex Landing at Ironheart Artisans, Bill and Jay at Warsenal.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of guys who do very cool terrain. The guys at Foreground, for example, as well. They do lots of fantastic stuff. But they're all people who are pushing what MDF and acrylic and plasticard, sheet styrene sort of things can do to take something and make it less boxy.
Right.
It might be a box, but it's got a lot of depth and a lot of layers to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm all for it. I think there's lots of wonderful things you can do with it. Just recently for my Dark Age terrain collection, I took some of the Warsenal Infinity buildings, assembled them, and then sort of wrecked them.
Cool.
I made them look like they'd been sitting out in the desert for 500 years. So that's sort of a cool thing you can do. You're not sort of constrained by, okay, I've got this thing, I put it together the one way, and that's it. There's lots of things you can do with it as well. MDF's a great material to carve, to cut, to sort of smash with a hammer. But yeah, big fan.
Excellent. We have one more from Deadman619 Inc. How big of a deal is priming in a humid area like Florida? I heard it's best not to prime in humid areas in general. So I guess he's probably kind of wondering what...
He probably lives in Florida and needs to know, so I can't prime my miniatures ever.
How am I going to prime when I live in
I need to move to North Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere where it's not humid at all. Well, living in Baltimore, which I, from a climate standpoint, I sometimes refer to as the armpit of America.
And Florida is the wang.
Yeah.
And we're the hat.
I thought it was the taint.
And what a delightful hat it is. But we get 1 week a year. It's in September when outdoor priming is
possible.
It's possible. It's sort of peak perfection. So yeah, outdoor priming can be tough. It's there's a few different ways around it, I guess. If you are in a place like Florida where it rains every day at 3:00. At least that's been my experience of Florida. I'm not sure if it's completely true, but doing it in, sort of priming in the evenings or the morning, when it's not as humid, typically you can do that. Or the other option is priming with an airbrush, and some of the Vallejo surface primers or Badger has some primer paints as well that you can run through an airbrush. That's another way to sort of help avoid the I guess the frosting or the
flocking effect. It's
the flocking effect. Yeah, the flocking effect is so annoying.
Well, the only other option I can think of too is you could also build build or buy a hood, which basically hauls the air away so that it allows you to prime indoors. Because AC actually does a very good job at dehumidifying, as you're learning at your house right now, because there's water all over your basement floor.
All over the floor,
yeah. So if you do it indoors, if you find a way to do it indoors safely, which isn't so great with rattle cans, but works great with airbrush paints because it's just acrylic, so it's something you do indoors anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely just fine with that. There are a couple of great sort of airbrush spray booths. I wouldn't recommend using rattle cans with those, but like exhaust booths, sort of things. They can be picked up sort of online for under a couple of $100. So that's something to consider. If you do have a basement and you have a laundry room in the basement where nothing is particularly clean, that's also a good place to prime. That's where I prime here in Baltimore. So just 20 feet that way.
Jason, you had something like that in your basement for a long time.
Sure did.
So I want to end this off tonight. I know that the audience may be noticing that we haven't done the lightning round this evening, that we've skipped the lightning round.
Yeah.
And that's because that would just be mean to Dave, and you wouldn't know any of the answers. And George is away. So it would just be me asking questions and giving you answers.
Blue is the answer.
Yeah. Blue
Blue.
Necron. I'm just going to go with Necron.
Yeah.
Every time.
Necron John.
The final question I want to leave tonight with is if there was something, a painter tip, and we leave this with most of our painters our hobby guys on the cast.
Yeah.
If there was a tip that somebody could have given you to save you a lot of heartache and learning curve way back in the day, what would it have been?
I would say probably the tip would be don't skimp on your materials. So, get good brush if you want to be painting well, painting smoothly, painting fine details, all that sort of thing. Get good brushes. Pay the little bit extra for the good brushes. Use good paints. I know when I started, I was at college and a poor university student, and I skimped and sort of was using some of my I was doing graphic design, and I was using some of my graphic design materials to paint miniatures, and they were not at all suited for it. Instead of paying the $2.50 for a good acrylic paint, I was paying $1.25 for a crappy sort of Humbrol oil paint. So the key thing would be don't skimp on the materials. If you want to start producing really nice work, just be comfortable with spending money on paint brushes and paints.
Do you have a particular line of brushes and paints that you're fond of, Dave?
I do. Obviously, I spent a lot of time. I spent 14 years working for Games Workshop, so I became very familiar with the Games Workshop paint range.
Right.
And of course, I guess it was 7 years ago, they switched over to the new paint line, and I had no idea what any of the new colors were. So I moved to the Vallejo game color range, which was based off of the original Citadel range.
Okay.
So so primarily I have a lot of paint recipes in my head. Like I know what the combination of these colors is going to create. So I use a lot of game color, but I've also picked up a lot of the Vallejo model color. I use some of the Army Painter range. I still use some Citadel paints. I've got I have a particular sort of collection of P3 paints that I'm a big fan of. Coal Black is a great one.
Coal Black, put that shit on everything.
Yeah, so good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Rin Flesh. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Rin Flesh. There we go. And Bastion Gray is another one that I love.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So I use that to shade all of my Death Guard for Horus Heresy.
Very nice.
So it's a mix of paint ranges, but I think definitely primarily it'll be Vallejo.
Cool.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Dave, for coming on the cast and telling us about the Nova Open, for giving us some tips and tricks.
Yep.
I want to get you back on the show, probably on a night with James. I think it'd be cool to have both of them on the show.
That would be great. Yeah.
And we can talk a bit about sculpting, because I know that we have a audience that would love to really discuss sculpting and sculpting techniques, which is not something that we can talk about at all.
Yeah, it's it's becoming more and more popular, I think, people wanting to kit bash and do kind of their own.
Well, not only that, people just want to have bases that look different than other people's bases.
Yeah.
I mean, with all of us with round-lipped bases and flocking, eventually we all want to have something that...
A little different.
Our rocks in a different spot. Our tufts just slightly tuftier than the next guy.
That's right.
And that can really make or break an army. So I think we'll try in the next few months to get you guys together on a show, and we can have you guys talk about sculpting, because I think that would be an awesome topic.
I agree.
But I think we want to give you guys some time to prep for that, because.
Okay.
Cool.
Definitely. I think that'd be cool. I've done quite a bit of base sculpting for Secret Weapon miniatures.
Nice.
And it's definitely cool when I get to work on a range. Actually, I think I just sent off a new range of roundlet bases for more sort of like an Alien versus Predator kind of feel to Secret Weapon. So I'm not sure how that. Maybe those creepy tentacles would work for the Grimkin.
Oh yeah, there you go. Creepy tentacles.
Not sure.
Grimkin. So we have a little bit of bookkeeping to do before we go tonight. I want to make sure that we thank Wizards Tower for keeping the lights on. I want to thank whoever just tuna rolled Jason.
Son of a bitch.
Remember that Wizards Tower is probably the best place to go online to get your miniatures in Canada. They carry a full line. They also are the place to get your Magic the Gathering cards. Thanks to Dave and the folks at Wizards Tower, we get to do this cast every week. And MooseCon will be coming up. We'll be starting to announce information on MooseCon in the next couple of months. And you guys know that Wizards Tower will be involved in that.
Yep.
I want to give a shout out to Fraser and the crew over at Deaf Head Dice. They're going to be coming on in just a bit to do Troll Blood Scrum.
No.
Oh, they've canceled on us again?
Not tonight.
What, Fraser couldn't find anybody to come play? Was that what happened? Or?
I don't know.
So, but don't forget that you need to go use your battle reporter.
Also, their big Who Wants to Be a Podcaster thing is coming up this Saturday.
Who wants to be a podcaster?
Somebody's taking my job. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. It's just
we didn't want to tell you.
Yeah, it's an elaborate way for somebody to come and steal my job. And
succession planning is what it's called.
It's important to plan
There's
ahead.
a businessman right there.
Yeah, and it's best to not let the guy that we're replacing know. So that's not
True.
happening. I don't know what you're talking about, Jason. It's not happening.
I'll just hang out outside.
Fraser
the window.
just talked to us a couple days ago about. Fraser just talked to us a couple days ago about coming on and doing something during that. So we'll be involved in You Could Be a Podcaster.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. We'll just make George win it so that he can have his own show.
He's not here to say no. So
Who else do I need to thank? I need to make sure that we thank Muse on Minis. We got all our tokens from Muse on Minis. They're great folks. Go check them out. Once again, we are always about small mom and pop type operations, and the guys at Muse on Minis are exactly that. I mean, it's literally a few dudes with a little warehouse. Love those guys. Make sure that you go visit John and those guys on their website. Buy your tokens.
Muse on Minis do some of that great 2D terrain that we were talking about. So.
Exactly. And of course, our podcast is part of the Muse on Minis network. And go to their Facebook or go to their forums to make any comments about our show if you have any questions. Check them out because all of that is super importante.
Very.
And that's about it for us tonight. I don't think there's too much else to tell you, folks. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks to all the people that stuck around for the live show tonight. And don't forget, go to the Nova Open Charitable Foundation's Facebook page, check it out, like it, and then make sure that you go to their website and get your raffle. Where is that website?
The website is novaopenfoundation.org. So NOVA Open Foundation, all one word. .org.
We'll make sure that that's in the show notes as well.
In the description, right down there.
Right down there. And go get your tickets. You too could get a whole awesome, amazing striker painted army for $10 or more,
That's pretty
or
sweet.
$30 or $80. Really,
30, yeah.
If you really want it,
you'll
slap down
like
$150.
$150.
Yeah.
You're gonna spend way more than that to get the list anyway.
You're pretty much gonna, $150. You got it in hand. That's
a couple units or something. I mean,
one thing I'll mention as well is that Privateer Press donated all the models for that army. So thank you very much. To
and I believe Secret Weapon Miniatures did the bases. Did they not?
Secret Weapon Miniatures also donated the bases.
That is very cool.
Thank you very much to Justin and crew.
I donated my saliva and paint.
So somebody is getting some miffed spit.
It's right in there. It's right mixed in.
Paint.
It's right in there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us for this evening. Dice down. If I could, where did the dice down? Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong. All right, we're out. We're still live, but the podcasting portion of this evening is finished.